Hey everybody, welcome to our Gold Road. A few of you have been asking for this, so we thought today would be a great day to show you how we install the AC in the U-Haul. Let's go check it out.
Snowing.
Because it's snowing. Because you need an AC in the snow, right?
Yeah.
Just kidding. So today we're going to actually show you how to install the AC in the U-Haul since it's not snowing outside. But it's not going to be a step-by-step watch me put the AC in because I've already installed the AC. I did that a couple years ago. But since I've uploaded the video of our U-Haul trailer tour, I've had people asking how we install the window AC unit inside the trailer. So I'm going to explain the steps behind how I did it just to help you out if you're trying to decide whether to install a rooftop AC or if you want to do a hack and do a window unit AC inside of your U-Haul. Let's go see how it's done. So if you watched the U-Haul tour video, you saw that I had an AC unit installed underneath the bunk beds in an old storage space. We did that for two reasons. First was cost. It's much cheaper to install this window AC unit inside than it was to install an AC unit up top. Second is I wasn't quite sure on how to install the AC unit up top. Because of my lack of know-how, I didn't want to create another space where there could possibly be leaks, so I decided to go the easier and less possible damage to the trailer if something went wrong by sticking it inside. Now I'm going to give you a little details on how I did it. So one of the first things you want to do, of course, is buy the AC units. I will leave a description and a model number of the one we have here below, but you can choose any model AC you want. It's all up to you. Just make sure that it fits in the space that you're going to be cutting out of. The next thing you want to do is you're going to measure for the space where you're going to cut around the AC unit. What you're going to need to measure is not the face for cutting the hole. You need to measure the components in the back, because some of the components are taller than the face, and you want to make sure that the unit slides in to the holes you put it in, not just how much is sticking out. So you're actually going to have a gap around here because some of these pieces in the back are bigger than the face of the AC unit. So keep that in mind when you're measuring. So once you have the measurement done for your AC units, you're going to want to grab a few tools. You're going to need a jigsaw with a fine-tooth blade. You're going to need a drill with a drill bit that's slightly bigger than your blade. I'll leave the size down in the description. You're going to need some painter's tape, a sharpie, and a ruler to make straight lines. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take your painter's tape and you're going to tape across the area where you're going to cut. Just like that. Like that. Just for example. Sorry, it's not going to be neat. It's just an example. But you're going to make sure that the center of the tape is going to be the line where you're going to be cutting. The reason we're going to do that is we're going to be using a jigsaw to cut fiberglass, and if you didn't have the tape on there, it would crack or chip the fiberglass. This will help prevent this from cracking as you're cut through. If you want to be extra safe, you can double up the tape if you want, but one strip of tape should be good enough if you have a brand new blade, so make sure you have a brand new blade. And you're going to want to do that all the way around the part that you're going to cut for your AC unit. So now what you're going to do is you're going to drill a starting hole. I recommend starting somewhere a little bit down below or side the points. Don't start right in the corners because it's going to be harder to cut your jigsaw either way. So you just take your drill and drill through your fiberglass till you get a perfect hole. You want to make sure that your hole is big enough to fit this blade. And then what you'll do is you'll take the blade and go up and curve to the next line, and then you can come back and go straight up and straight back to get your perfect corners. But it's easier to cut if you go at an angle rather than cutting straight up and turning your blade sideways. Just a recommendation. You can do it however you want, but that should make it easier to cut your rounded corners. And then you're just going to do that all the way around until you get it out. Now once you get the hole cut in the front, there's three things you need to take into consideration with this AC unit. You're going to have condensation that's going to drip from the bottom. You have an air intake from one side, and then you're going to have an exhaust that goes out the back, or basically the front of your trailer. So you have to keep in mind you have to cut 3 more holes in your trailer in order to have this function properly. So you have to drill a hole in the bottom of the trailer for the condensation to escape. You have to put a hole in the side of the trailer for the air intake, and then you're going to have to put a hole in the back of the AC or the front of the trailer for the exhaust, for all the hot air that's going to be blown out of the AC unit. Now when it comes to the condensation on these things, some of the newer ACs have an actual hole in the bottom of the condensation that comes with the piping system and all that stuff for the drainage to come out. Ours did not. So that's once again something you need to look into when you're looking for an AC unit, is if it doesn't have a condensation hole in the bottom or a whole kit that goes underneath for condensation, you're going to have to drill a hole in the AC unit, which means taking the back part off of it, finding where the condensation goes, and drilling a hole through. It's not as hard of a task as you think it is, but it is something that has to be done, or you're going to have water spilling all over the inside of your trailer during hot summer months. On that note, once you get this installed, even if it's installed properly, if your trailer is not level, you will also get water all over the floor because the condensation pan is going to sit whichever way your trailer is. And if it's not sit properly to where it's going to go out the condensation hole, you're also going to get water. That's some issue we had after installing this trailer. But that's, everybody levels their trailers. This is just a situation where you're going to have to level this trailer if you're going to use the AC. Another thing to take consideration is once you get this in here, remember that there's going to be space in between here. So you're actually going to have to set something underneath to make sure your AC is level in your trailer. We used about a 3/4 inch piece of plywood and actually a bar mat underneath this to get this right level. Plus the bar mat is rubber, so it kind of takes a little bit of the shock of driving. Yours is going to be a little bit different because it's going to depend on where you cut this and how much space you need, but those are just the tools that we need. So the next step after you figure out your condensation hole is you're going to need to cut a hole in the side of the trailer for your air intake, because basically you have to pull air inside to the AC unit to condition the air to get your cold air. But there's not enough space in here to circulate enough air to cool it off, so you have to have air coming from inside. So you always have to remember to have the intake or your AC unit's not going to work properly. We're going to show you how to cut that and install that cover in just a second. So because these AC window units weren't designed to be used in such tight confined spaces, their exhaust system is the entire back side of their unit. So we had to design this sort of cone-shaped device out of a metallic window reflector so it could funnel the hot air through the exhaust, out the air duct, and then out of the trailer. And that is where the exhaust hole comes into play. Once again, I'll show you how we cut those in just a second. Now that we've got the inside done, we're going to cut the intake hole and the exhaust hole from the outside of the trailer. So when you're cutting the holes in the trailer, you're going to have the exhaust that's going to be right next to the propane tank, and then your intake is going to be right behind the door. When you're cutting the intake, I would just find the flattest surface because you don't need to be in an exact spot there. When you're cutting out the exhaust hole, you want to be sure that you're right behind where that funnel is going to be so that air duct hose can come right outside of this door. Basically, it's going to look like this, and your exhaust is going to be right behind it. So when you're cutting this hole, make sure you're in the right spot. Just to give you an idea of what it's going to look like on the outside after you're done. These little hatch covers, these marine hatch covers, easily come off. So then you have the intake and the exhaust. And the caps go back on just like this when you're not using it. You're going to have to buy a 6-inch marine hatch cover. I'll leave a link in the description. One thing to take into consideration when you have these hatch covers is the 6-inch hatch cover is for the opening. The whole thing is probably about 8 inches wide, but you need to measure the inside of it. You'll see a threaded part on the inside. That's the part you're going to have to measure on the trailer when you're cutting the hole. So when you put it inside, you can screw inside the fiberglass part. So basically, can't really see it. This threaded part right here, the outer rim of that on the inside is what you measure onto the trailer. Basically trace it around when you put the tape down. So when you're cutting the hole, this slides in perfectly, and this outer piece is able to mount into the trailer. You're also going to need a piece of plywood to go on the inside of this, which I will show you later, so you can attach this piece to the trailer and have it more secure. So you'll basically do the same thing you did before, where you'll put tape down, but I basically put tape all the way down this way to cover a full circle. And then you're going to take your hatch cover and you'll just trace around the back to get your perfect circle. Then you're going to take your drill your starting point again like you did inside, and then you're going to take your jigsaw and you're going to cut around your hole. Now once you have your hole cut out, you're going to take your hatch cover and you're going to stick it on this side. This is probably a part where you might need somebody to help you. So I had my wife on the inside holding the piece of plywood, and then I was outside here. You're going to pre-drill your holes, and then you're going to install your 6 wood screws in here. You'll apply a marine adhesive around the outside to make sure that this sticks and there's no water penetration. Now when these are open, you have the possibility of animals crawling in here at night. So we put a little screen around here. Of course you can't have one here, but they're not going to crawl into an exhaust hole. If they are, they're not going to survive very long. But on this side panel next to the door, I installed this screen so no animals and critters could crawl in these holes when they're open when you're at the campsite. So like I was mentioning, on the outside of the trailer, you have this piece of plywood that we cut out and then cut a hole in it as well, so the screws could come through and be securely mounted to the trailer. That way it's not just screwed into fiberglass, it's also screwed into the wood. And then I stapled the screen on the outside of the plywood. So one thing I forgot to mention is that after you get your AC unit installed and leveled on your piece of wood or your bar mat or whatever you use to level this inside your trailer, you're also going to need to strap it down. So we use an old suitcase strap that we had from one of our old board bags to basically strap down on either side, and then we're able to pull tight so we can make sure that the AC stays in one place so it doesn't bounce all around when you're in transit. So to give you an example of what we use to tie down that AC unit, it basically looks like this. It's kind of like an old board bag, has a clip on it like that, and then you can pull the string to tighten it. So we cut it about halfway down, we drilled holes in this part and anchored it on either side of the AC unit, and then we clipped it over the top and then tightened it down. That way the AC unit wouldn't bounce around while we were driving down the road. Well, that's it. That's the steps we took to install the AC unit in our U-Haul. I'm sorry this wasn't a video on the actual how-to and the step-by-step during the process of doing it, but I didn't record a video when I did this, and this was done 2 or 3 years ago. But hopefully, if you have questions about how to install an AC unit in your U-Haul, this helps you out. If you're new to Our Gold Road, please subscribe below for more videos on trailer renovations and how-tos to get you on the road. Also, leave a comment below. If you've installed an AC unit in a U-Haul or a Burrow or any fiberglass trailer before, and you have something that would help other people out, please leave a comment below. Or if you have any questions that I can help you out, if you have further questions on installing the AC, please don't hesitate to ask. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I realized that I almost forgot to tell you how we plug this in, or how we get power to the AC unit. I just plug it in on the inside. I run an extension cord or a surge protector from the plug, and I just plug the AC unit into it. For now, I just plug it in every time I need to use it and unplug it if I don't.